Welcome to Selfish Confidence, a place where we can connect and be real about how hard it is to be your damn self. My name is Jess, and my goal is to help you build confidence and belief in yourself to live any life path you want, even if it's unconventional. It's time to flip off societal pressures and connect with women who've also felt on the outside by their life choices. We're here to encourage you to grab the mic and speak your truth. I know it can be scary, but we're in this together. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Selfish Confidence Podcast. It's Jess here, and I have been thinking about a lot of different topics lately. And I was thinking about this as I was eating my eggs and my oatmeal this morning, and I was just like, man, I don't really plan a lot of this podcast out. Like, I'm being totally real and raw with you. And if you're someone who listens to this and you're like, I want a podcast someday, but I feel like I have to have like a 90-day plan and it all figured out before I start, you don't. I actually get a lot of my ideas and episodes from just my interactions and from even my own thoughts. So it can be from like, maybe I was out at the mall and I saw something and it sparked this idea. It's like, oh, I'm not the only one who thinks that, or I'm not the only one who feels that way. I should make a podcast episode about that. Or even earlier when I was outside petting my cat, I had an idea for like a podcast episode. It just comes into my head sometimes. And as they do, I know it's what needs to be said right now. I'm not a person who can plan 90 days in advance because I don't even know what I want to talk about next week or next month. It's ever changing. Topics and ideas and everything happening in the world is always changing. So I love for it to be more in the moment and just being able to feel it, think about it, and then get on the mic and tell you all about it. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because, one, I really want you to know the truth. I want you to know that you don't have to have it all figured out in order to sit down and make a podcast. To make 171 episodes of a podcast, you can do it. You just have to have an idea every week or interact with people and really get to know who you're talking to. And I feel like I know you. Like, I feel like we are so connected, and I'm so grateful for that. And every time I sit down on the mic, I feel like I know what you need to hear. And it's because it's what I also need to hear. Really, it's what we collectively as women in this world need to hear right now, because we're in this cage and we're trying to get out of it. And sometimes that comes from having a team around you that's just like, oh, right, we're not in this alone. We can break the walls down of this cage if we do it together. And so that's why I created Selfish Confidence, and that's why I still come on this mic 2 times a week, every week, so that we can sit down and connect about these things that we're facing in the world and how to have more confidence to conquer them. But I had a topic that I really wanted to talk to you about today. But as I was sitting down, eating my breakfast, hanging out with myself, I had this idea of something that came up last night. And it became the thing that I was so obsessed with that I had to sit down and talk about. And so I'm going to tell you a little story. Last night, I went out for a walk and to get an ice cream with a good friend of mine. And this is a friend that I have never met in real life. She lives on the other side of the country, but we have been talking online for years, almost like pen pals, like we're old. No, but like we've been talking online for years. I really know her. And when we were going out, we stopped at this local ice cream shop so that we could grab an ice cream because it's summertime, need a little ice cream cone, you're celebrating as our last day of vacation. So it's like this ice cream shack that had like a bunch of teenagers working at it. It was 3 girls who were working there, and someone was scooping the ice cream, and the other girls who were done working, they went and they sat down, and I could hear them talking over there. And the girl looked at herself in her phone and she's like, oh, like I look so ugly today. And I bet you can think of a time that you have said that to yourself, that you've looked in the mirror and maybe your pants aren't buttoning up the way you want them to, or the outfit's just not sitting on your body the right way, or your hair is crazy. I see so many people do this all the time when they get on their Instagram stories and they're just like, sorry for my crazy hair. What you sorry about? What are you sorry about? I always just want to like slap you through the phone. Like, your hair looks great. You look great. But I know it's really hard to see that. Especially when you come on, you see other people whose hair looks perfect or other people whose bodies looked perfect. And in this moment, so the girl turned to her friend. She's like, oh, like I just look so ugly right now. And I know she wanted a reaction from her friend. She wanted her friend to say like, no, you look so beautiful. Like, what are you talking about? But her friend was just kind of like, oh yeah, I totally get it. Or like, oh yeah, like, you know, me too kind of thing. Like that, like kind of like shove it off kind of answer. She's like, no, you're supposed to say like, oh, no, you look so good. And what was interesting, just like watching this interaction between these 2 teenage girls, was This person was looking for external validation in her beauty. Even though she worked in an ice cream shop all day, she smelled like ice cream cones. She was, sweaty. It had been a long day. It was hot over here. We're humid. She probably wasn't feeling her best. She just worked all day. And instead of validating herself through that, she's been like, man, like I just worked really hard. Like I'm doing a good job. She went right to like the self-sabotage, that feeling of just like, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I didn't do enough. And was hoping that her friend would boost her up. And I'm still kicking myself over here for just like watching that interaction and not saying anything. Because when teenagers are scary, if you have a teenager, you're going to agree with me. And if you've ever just like walked in a mall where there's a bunch of teenagers they're scary, okay? And I didn't want to say something that one would escalate the conversation or would make her feel uncomfortable or put on the spot because you don't know me. I'm just a girl getting an ice cream just like everybody else in this line. But I wish that I had the courage to say to her, like, no, like stop that right now. Stop in your tracks. Because if I had learned what I know now at 33, back when I was 16 scooping ice cream, I probably would be in a very different spot than I am right now. Imagine the knowledge that you have in your 30s that you could have had if you would have listened to people when you were in your teenage years. And again, like the story of the baby turtle, if you've never heard that story, we've talked about it a few times on the podcast, that if you pick up the turtle, the little baby turtle, and you put the turtle in the water, he will not survive. You have to let them go through that like period of getting from the nest to the water on their own in order to be able to be strong enough to survive the ocean. It's the same thing with teenagers. You have to let them go through that period of figuring themselves out and learning this for themselves before they become an adult. But if I could rewind and talk to this beautiful young girl and her not think I'm totally crazy, maybe she would, but that's fine. I'm okay with it. But I would tell her like that she didn't need her friend to validate her existence, to validate her beauty, to validate her worth, and that her talking about herself like that is not helping. It's not going to get you further in life. It's not going to get you the opportunities you want. It's actually going to hold you back a heck of a lot more. Every time we say something negative of ourselves, even if it's just in our head and nobody else hears it, you're holding yourself back. You're dimming your light. You're putting your potential on the back burner just to, dim yourself to fit into society standards that we all hate ourselves and that's the norm. This is what it's all about. We're here just to be beautiful human beings. No. That's not it. And the reason I tell you this story isn't to shame the young girl, because again, we all do this. It's actually to put light on the negative self-talk and how it's actually hurting you. You could put in a full day with your kids. You could be running around, doing all the things. You got the groceries, you got them to dentist appointments, you took them to school, you did every freaking thing. And at the end of the day, you still look in the mirror and tell yourself you're not enough. And even as I say that, I get super emotional because it's just like, you did everything. You literally did everything. And you still think you're not enough. So what's going to change? How can you change that attitude that you have that you're not enough, that you're not doing enough, that you're not pretty enough, that you're not young enough, that you're not, insert the excuse you've been telling yourself or the thing you've been telling yourself over and over and over again, and that you're not skinny enough, that you're not smart enough. You don't have enough followers to start a podcast. I used to tell myself all the time, I didn't have enough things to say. Who's going to listen to me? I don't have enough things to say. Clearly, I have 171 episodes worth of things to say, which is still wild to me. But it's the truth. You are enough. And I know I've said this on repeat over and over again on different episodes on this podcast, but I keep saying it because I keep hearing it and nothing's changing. Nothing's changing. And I'm not sitting here all high and mighty saying I never have negative self-talk, because I do too. I actually went through all my clothes in my closet the other day, just of things that don't fit my style, that don't fit my body. And that's a whole other podcast episode that I'm really excited to dive into with you too. But the things that you tell yourself when your pants don't fit are not great things. And it's just a pair of freaking pants, but for some reason, it means a lot to us. Society has told us, and we've grown up, if you're like me, grown up in the 90s, and you were told over and over again that your body is your value and your worth. So when your pants don't fit, it means that you're not valued in society anymore. It means that you're not worthy. Or when you're sweaty after a long day of working in the ice cream shop, you're not worthy, right? You should be coming home looking beautiful with your pristine curls and everything so beautiful and nice and blah, 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 right? That's not it. We need to change that narrative. And I wanted to talk to you about that today because there's a couple ways that you can step into that a bit more in ways that I've been helping myself to do that as my body's changing, as life is changing. And I really want you to know that you're not alone in this. And if you have a moment like this and you're just like, oh man, like I need to lean on someone, send me a message, connect with me, or connect with someone who's safe for you that you feel like you can share anything with. And they're not going to judge you, or they're not going to turn it around back on themselves, or they're not just going to snuff it off like the girl's friend in the ice cream shop. They're actually going to listen to you and see you and help you through something that's really hard. We can easily shake it off and say, oh, we all feel like that. It's not a big deal. But that's not helping. I want you to feel and really sit with that idea that you're thinking you're not enough, or you're thinking you're not worthy. And try to change that narrative. What would make you feel worthy instead? What would make you feel like you were enough? I did this with a client before who was seeing themselves as not enough week after week after week. And I made her sit down even just for one day and write out everything she did. And she's like, the list was really freaking long. It was really long. You did a lot of things in one day. So why don't you feel like you're not doing enough? What more could you be doing? What time do you have to do these things? So the next time you notice a thought like this come in, let's go with the one from the ice cream store, that you're not pretty enough or that you're not looking good today. Is there a way that you can change that narrative? Is there a way that you can see it differently? And I know that this is really hard because sometimes it's hard to see it in ourselves. But before going to external sources, like asking your husband, do I look good in this? I did that to Glenn the other day. I asked him if my butt looked nice. Hey, sometimes we do need a boost. You're right. But instead of going instantly to an external person, an external source of validation, can we go internal? Can we change that narrative inside? Okay, so you hear the thought come up, I'm not pretty enough. And you stop in the tracks. You're like, wait a second. What did I just say? Oh, okay. Feel it. Sit with it. Ask yourself where it came from. Why do I think that? And have this dialogue that you were hoping to have with someone else with yourself. And I know, sounds like a crazy thing to do. I talk to myself all the time. Where do you think these podcast episodes come from? We're literally right now. Even though I know you're listening to this and I can picture you, I'm literally sitting in a room in the corner of my office talking to myself, essentially. So have this conversation with yourself. Okay, that's how I feel. Why do I feel that way? What could I feel instead? What's going to help me right now to actually step into what I want to feel and what I want to think? And yeah, sure, there's going to be outfits that don't fit right on your body. When you're going shopping, you tell yourself, this doesn't look right on me, right? But put it back on the piece of clothing. It's not your body that's wrong. That clothing just wasn't meant for you, right? And maybe same in that moment of, I don't feel pretty, right? Or I don't look good right now. Okay, but to what standard? Why are you saying that? What is it that you don't feel pretty about? Is it something that you might want to change, right? Maybe you just need to brush your hair. That's okay. Brush your hair. What's going to make you feel really good? And I talked about this earlier on my stories today too, of like getting grounded when you're feeling that stress or feeling chaotic and even just unclear with yourself and who you are. I like to get outside and put my feet in the grass. And I know some of you are like, Jess, you are so weird, but it's really nice. There's a rock in my backyard. I've talked about it many times in this podcast. I go outside and I sit on my rock, put my feet on it all times of year. I put my feet in the snow, and just really getting grounded with nature and with the earth has helped me to have clarity in who I am. And that does not mean that I do not have comments like that about myself. I do. But the sooner you can change your worth from this beauty standard to who you are as a person it's going to help to have that happen less. It's going to help for you to start to shift that narrative to being about the clothing, about the standard. It's not about you. You are like 110% enough, 200% enough. Like you are more than enough. And I'm so sorry that something or someone made you feel like you weren't. And so now you keep telling yourself over and over again that you're not. But you are. You really are. And just like everything else, this takes practice. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not just going to wake up and feel worthy and feel enough. But if you start to challenge this thought every time it comes in, and sometimes you might result in that being like, yeah, that's how I feel right now, and that's the truth. Other times you might challenge it and be like, oh yeah, you're right, that is crazy. So if you have that thought come into your head, I'm not enough and I'm not doing enough. Okay, why do I feel that way? Where is it coming from? And how can I change that? Is it something that I physically need to change about myself or about my to-do list or something that I'm doing? Or is it that I'm just putting an unrealistic standard on myself? Oh yeah, that second one. It's probably always the second one. Okay, we're okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to make it through this. Wouldn't life be like way less stressful if we were always walking through it with this confidence of I'm enough and I'm pretty and I'm worthy of being here? It's not narcissistic to live like that. It's confidence. And I really think women would take over the world in a massive way if we believed this in ourselves more. If we weren't told to dim and sit in the corner and play quietly and do all these things, I really think we would take over the world. So how are you going to take over the world today? And maybe it's not the world, maybe it's just your life. How are you going to take over your life today? By changing your negative self-talk and start seeing yourself in the beautiful light that you are. So the next time you're walking into a store and you're trying on the clothes, blame it on the clothes. Don't blame it on your body. The next time you're looking in the mirror and you're just like, man, I'm looking rough today. Blame it on the fact that you had a rough day, that it was a hard day. It's busy. It's not you. It's not how you look. You can shift the narrative. It's not about you. You're enough exactly as you are. There's something deeper there. So dig for it. I hope you have an awesome week, and I love you so much.
What's up, sis? I am so glad we could hang out today. If you love this episode, send it to a friend or share it on your social media and tag me so I can personally thank you for helping me sprinkle some confidence in the world. And don't forget, you are magic. Let's show the world your shine.